manager of the Safe at Home program with the Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice. She grew up in Northern California and moved to Utah shortly after earning her undergraduate degree in religious studies and women's studies from Arizona State University. She then worked in public broadcasting in Utah doing fundraising, outreach, and local on-air hosting. Her interests in current events and government led her to earn a degree in public policy at the University of Utah. She later attended law school at UC Davis with a special interest in tribal courts and federal Indian law. Her past work experience has been in nonprofit outreach, communications, and fundraising, as well as public policy research. So we're so excited to have her here to talk a little bit about the address confidentiality program. And you can just tell Maddie next slide and show.
Okay, thanks, Vicki, and thanks everybody. Good morning, I'm Tara with the Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice, and I'm the program manager for the Safe at Home program, which is meant to protect the residential addresses of victims of domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, and human trafficking from perpetrators who may still pose a threat. So last December, SWAVO, I talked just really briefly at the end of the meeting about the program, but I'm going to give more information about it today and then also give a little information about what to expect coming up. The program hasn't launched yet, but we're hoping to go live at the end of January or early February. So first, the background and purpose, if we can go to the first slide, Maddie. HB 117 was passed in 2022, creating Utah's Safe at Home program. And like I said, the purpose is to protect the residential addresses of victims of domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, and human trafficking from perpetrators who may still pose a safety threat if they knew the location of the victim. Something I should mention also is this is available to victims as well as people threatened with these kinds of violence. So this program is meant to be one tool as part of a more comprehensive safety plan, and it should not be thought of as an entire safety plan for a victim who participates in the program. The goal of Safe at Home is really to allow survivors to keep their actual address confidential from their abusers and the general public while sort of regularly functioning in daily life. So next slide. Thank you. So we protect a victim's residential address by providing them with a substitute address that they can use as a legal address for their home, work, and school address in place of their true residential address. And there are three major things program participants can do with their substitute address. First, program participants can receive mail at their assigned address, and Safe at Home will forward it to them for free. There are some exceptions to this. We don't forward packages, we don't forward junk mail, which no one will miss. But for the most part, we'll forward all first-class mail at no charge, so they're able to use it as their mailing address without giving out their true address to anyone. And then under the law, state and local government agencies are required to accept the substitute address as the participant's true address for both communications and records purposes. So this keeps the addresses out of both public records and internal records. And it means government agencies that need to mail things to program participants will mail them to their substitute address and will forward them along like their other mail. Again, there are some exceptions to this in cases where the actual residential address is needed. An example is voter registration. So for voter registration, in order to be receiving the correct ballot in the right precinct, the county clerk needs to know their actual residential address. But then they have created a new sort of super confidential classification for those Safe at Home program participants, and those people won't show up in any voter registration records. So they're still able to vote, but that voter registration information is not available. In addition, there are things like if a program participant were on probation and home visits are a requirement of probation, of course, that probation officer would need their true address. So there are these exceptions, but for the most part, the state and local government need to accept the substitute address as their true address. And then the third thing is participants can use the substitute address to receive legal service of process, both in person and by mail. So all of these things are really meant to keep people's addresses out of as many places as we possibly can. Next slide. So something substitute addresses can be used for. They can be used in a lot of places. So victims are able to have the substitute addresses on their driver's license. which in many cases, this goes a long way in protecting that address because private individuals and businesses are not required legally to accept that substitute address as their true address. But since it shows up on their driver's license, in most cases where you need to give out your address, if it looks like a residential address, it's on your license, most people are going to accept it. Like I mentioned, they can use it for voter registration. So they need to go vote in person at the county clerk's and then can receive ballots by mail at that substitute address, and we'll forward them along. And then they also can be used on court documents and with law enforcement. Again, there are exceptions to some of these things. If a judge issues a court order requiring the program participant to reveal their true address, we can't override that court order. But we're working really closely with the courts and judges so that they're familiar with the program and understand its importance, so that hopefully that rarely comes up. And then with law enforcement, the substitute address should be used if someone receives a traffic ticket or something similar. Again, there are going to be exceptions. If a program participant is subject to an active criminal investigation, the police may need the true address. Again, if they're on probation and have home visits, things like that, of course, the true address unfortunately would be needed. And then they can use their substitute address to receive benefits and services. And we'll assist with school enrollment and records transfers to keep that true address protected, but make sure their children are enrolling in the correct school district and school. Next slide. So who can enroll in the program? Program participants first must live in Utah. If they have an address in Utah but are living in another state, then they are not eligible for Utah's Safe at Home program. But most other states have programs, about 40 states have programs. But they would need to apply in that state where they're actually living. And enrollment does not transfer from state to state. So if you're working with someone who's moving from California and they're in Safe at Home California, they would need to reapply to the Utah program. Victims do not need to be legal citizens or be legal residents of the United States or of Utah. They just need to live in Utah. Also, just a quick note, if you are working in a part of Utah that's close to the border of another state and are sometimes working with victims who may live just across the border, if you're down by Arizona, working with victims in both Utah and Arizona, there is an address confidentiality program in every state that borders Utah. So again, they would have to apply to that state's program if that's where they're living, but that's just an FYI, and we're happy to help them try to connect with that state. So after program enrollment, participants can request that any public records reflecting their address be changed to their substitute address to keep their location private. However, this can only be done retroactively for 90 days prior to when they applied for the program. So any records that extend before those 90 days can't be redacted, and their information will remain in records of various agencies. So there's an emphasis on this 90-day moving period. Potential program participants must have either moved within the last 90 days, be moving within the upcoming 90 days, or live at an address unknown to the perpetrator. So don't get too hung up on the 90 days, but ideally we really want to be catching people as they're in the process of moving. And yeah, that is the goal. Strongly encourage you to get them into the program before they move if possible, or as soon as possible after a move. So they're never giving out their new residential address and instead are only using that substitute address provided by Safe at Home. The program really works best for people who never give out their true address in the first place. And of course, unfortunately, it's hard to take back the address once it's out there. So when we receive an application, we'll do a couple quick searches, like Googling someone's name and birth date to see if we find their actual address. We'll still accept them into the program if we do, but notify them that we were able to find their true address easily. And for people who realize their address is already out there, if you Google search and can find yourself with your true address you're still living at, the program isn't going to do a lot for you. So it's something to consider when you're working with victims. A victim is required to work with a certified program assistant to apply. This is important because I'm hoping that you all will decide to become certified program assistants. So Safe at Home is not receiving applications directly. The purpose of this is really to make sure that victims are working with a victim advocate to create a more comprehensive safety plan. As I mentioned, this is really meant to be one tool as part of a total safety plan. So I'll talk more about program assistance in a minute, but again, they kind of play a critical role in this program. And then lastly, we must have some documentation of the actual or threatened violence along with the application for the program. I want to emphasize, though, the documentation does not have to be formal evidence. It can look like a handful of different things. It could be that it is some formal evidence, like a police report or an order of protection, but it also could be a letter written by someone like you, just a brief letter stating that you're working with this person, they are a victim, and they would benefit from the Safe at Home program. It could be a letter from a clergy member, a therapist, a doctor, someone that the person has confided in, saying this person has been a victim or has been threatened with this type of violence and would benefit by this address protection. So again, it can be a police report or court order, but it could be a letter from someone like you. So just to summarize quickly, 4 requirements to be eligible for the program. A person must be a victim of or threatened with sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, or stalking. They must have moved within the last 90 days, be moving within the next 90 days, or live in a location unknown to the perpetrator.
You too.
When they submit the application, they must submit some kind of documentation, but again, it does not need to be a police report or court order. It could be a letter from someone like you. And finally, they must reside in Utah, but there are no citizenship requirements or anything like that. Next slide. Okay, so who are certified program assistants? They are you. Their certified program assistants are advocates working with victims who have gone through a short training and taken a brief quiz after the training to become certified. So that training will look similar to the information I'm giving today, but be a bit more comprehensive. And that will be offered coming up probably in mid-January. The certified program assistance role is to provide information about the program to survivors as you're working with them, and to determine if it's a good fit, and then complete the application with the applicant. As I mentioned before, victims cannot apply directly to Safe at Home. They have to work with a certified program assistant. So again, I hope many of you will decide this is a valuable safety tool and choose to become certified. Again, the purpose of this is to make sure Safe at Home program participants are connected to an advocate who's working with them to make a more comprehensive safety plan. So once you have submitted, hopefully you, when you're certified, have submitted the application with a victim, Safe at Home will do the rest. So the role of the certified program assistant is really just sit down with that applicant, fill out the application with them, help them understand what the program is, how it can benefit them, make sure it's a good fit for them, and then submit that application, and your role is complete. We will do everything from there. Also, as we get the program started, people who might benefit from it may not hear about it unless it's through advocates like you. And even if the program isn't the right fit for someone at the time when you're talking to them, it may be a resource you want to tell them about and that they could use down the road if they decide to move or have a change in their situation. Again, though, I do want to emphasize it isn't available yet, but it will be in a month and a half or 2. If there's a survivor interested in enrolling and the program assistant determines that they're a good fit for the program, they can then complete the application either online or on paper and submit it to Safe at Home along with the documentation, which again can be a letter from a doctor, clergy member, you. And program assistants then determine eligibility for Safe at Home just using those 4 criteria mentioned. And if you have questions, also you can contact Safe at Home at any time. If you are not sure if someone is eligible, please don't hesitate to contact us. We ask that certified program assistants do not submit applications that they or you as a certified program assistant do not feel are appropriate. The program doesn't accomplish anything for victims when the perpetrator already knows where they live. We can easily find out. Also, if victims are freely giving out their addresses, the program won't work well for them. So it's important they really understand that they need to keep that address protected too. Once an advocate goes through the certification training and takes a short quiz, which can be taken as many times as necessary and is really just meant to emphasize a couple of main points of the program, they'll receive a username and password to log into the online application. In addition, a certified program assistant will receive a folder in the mail with an application in English and in Spanish with self-addressed stamped envelopes to Safe at Home, a certificate of completion, and some other information that may be helpful. And if paper applications are best for you, we'll send you as many as you need with self-addressed stamped envelopes. But we do ask that you don't scan and email in applications though, just because email is less secure than postal mail or our online application portal. Once an advocate is certified, that certification is valid for 2 years and follows the person to another organization if they change jobs. You're not required to, but we hope that advocates who become certified will be willing to share their work contact information on our website to make it easily accessible for victims looking for a certified program assistant to apply with. And advocates who become certified are not required to submit a certain amount of applications every year or meet with everyone who's interested in the program. This, again, is really meant to be one tool as part of an overall safety plan. It's my hope that many of you will choose to be certified to make the program as accessible as possible throughout the state. And then if you have the time and place to offer safe at home information and enrollment, that's what we encourage you to do for folks that you think can benefit from it. And again, I want to emphasize that once the application is submitted, the program assistant role is complete. If you've helped someone enroll in the Safe at Home program and they have questions in the future, if you have an easy answer, that's great, but please feel free to just pass them along to us with all questions. We'll provide all support for program participants once they've applied to the program. Next slide. Okay, so how to apply. As I've said, when someone wants to be in the Safe at Home program, the application process begins with the survivor meeting with a certified program assistant. Again, Safe at Home staff does not meet with prospective applicants and do not determine eligibility over the phone. We really rely on our program assistants like you to determine eligibility and to complete the application process with victims. We're intentional about providing comprehensive training to our certified program assistants, which again will be coming in January, so that you are confident in making decisions about whether a victim is eligible and on whether the program is the right fit for an individual victim. When a survivor and program assistant meet, the program assistant begins by providing survivors with information about the Safe at Home program so that the potential applicant can first decide whether it would be a good fit for them, whether they feel comfortable navigating the program and advocating for themselves, and whether this program would be a useful tool as part of their comprehensive safety plan. The application will include the program applicant's true residential address and phone number, which we of course need in order to be able to forward their mail to them and get in touch. Also, it's important for people to keep their information updated with us, and if they fail to do so, they'll have to be removed from the program. A quick thing I want to mention about that, though, is this is available to people in temporary living situations as well. So if a victim is moving into a shelter, for example, that can be a really good time to get them into the program, and we can use the shelter address for the time that they're in there as their actual residential address, and then change that to their more permanent address once they move. And then the only thing in that situation is it's really important to remind them that they need to update their contact information with us promptly as soon as they are in a more permanent location. And the good thing is if we get them into the program at this point before they move, we'll already have them enrolled and they never have to give out that new address once they're in a more permanent place. Again, they have to provide some kind of documentation. It does not need to be formal legal documentation. And there's more to the application, but I'll go over that in more detail in the actual certification training. But another section of the application I want to mention is the room for co-applicants. Anyone living in the same household as the victim is eligible as a co-applicant. And for the most part, I'd strongly encourage everyone in a household to apply, even if it's roommates. If I come into the program and my best friend and I are getting an apartment together and I get in, I never give out my true address, but she's giving out her address to people and it's easy to Google search her and find her address, then obviously my address is not protected very well. So we really want to try to get every member of the household in as a co-applicant in most scenarios. Once the application is complete, all applicants will sign and the certified program assistant will sign it and submit it. If you're submitting the application online, the certified program assistant will receive a confirmation email that it's been submitted, and the applicant will also receive a confirmation email if they've provided an email address. We'll review the application, and if it's complete and signed, we will certify the applicant as a new program participant. When an applicant is newly enrolled, again, the certified program assistant will receive an email that says they're newly enrolled, and the applicant will as well if they've provided an email address again. And then we take it from there. Just a quick thing I want to mention, if you begin an online application with someone and they're not able to complete it in one sitting or they need more information, if you need more time to finish it, you can save that application and come back to it for up to 30 days. So after 30 days, that will be deleted because we don't want that information with the true residential saved for too long. But if it takes more than one sitting, that's fine. It will save for 30 days. Okay, next slide. Okay, so when a person is newly enrolled in the program, they'll receive a welcome packet in the mail. If they've provided an email address, they'll also receive that welcome packet by email at the same time that they're notified that they're enrolled. That welcome packet will contain some important things that will make the program work for a new participant. So first, it will include their Safe at Home authorization card, which looks like this. And Maddie, can we jump ahead one slide? And we're gonna jump a couple and then come back. Thank you. So a program participant should keep this authorization card with them at all times, like their driver's license, because it will be used to show to government agencies that they are in fact in the program. The information on the card will include the program participant's name. So here we have Jane Doe and her substitute address. Up here, there's just a little bit of information about the law for state and local government agencies. And something I should mention also is the substitute address for all program participants will be the same. So it will be this 250 North 1950 West in Salt Lake City, and that's the actual address of State Mail Services. And then everyone will have a different suite or apartment number to differentiate so we can see where their mail should be going. And then there also are two dates on the front of the card. So one is this redaction start date. So that will be 90 days before they applied. So that is if they take this into a state or local government agency and say, I need my records redacted, that would be 90 days before they applied, and that's when the records need to be redacted from. So legally, that's the requirement. Things like this, if they have records that go back a little farther, it never hurts to say, hey, actually it was, this is 9/16, but it was actually the beginning of September. Can you just redact those two? And in many cases, people will be nice about it. Doesn't hurt to ask. And then also the expiration date. On the back, it's just contact information for us and just a little bit more information about the program. So also this expiration date, once a person is enrolled in the program, they're in the program for 4 years. Can we go ahead one more slide? Okay, so another important thing that will be included in that welcome packet is their county of residence letter. So like I said, everyone will have the same substitute address and they're all in Salt Lake County. So regardless of where the program participant actually lives. And we at Safe at Home would never reveal the county that a program participant lives in, but there may be reasons that the program participant themselves would want to prove the county that they live in without giving their full address. So a couple examples are benefits or services that are run through the counties. They may want to be able to prove that they're in a particular county, or also if they're filing a court case and want to prove that they're in the correct jurisdiction. That's another time when they may want to be able to show their county, but not reveal their whole address. So this is not intended for you to be able to read this entire thing, but this is just kind of a quick notification about the program. This is participant name and the actual county of residence. And then this is just on our sample, on our county of residence letter, there will be a sample of the authorization card. So if it is given to a government agency, they have a little bit of information about the program. So again, we will give that to program participants. We would not give that out to anyone. It's up to them if they want to disclose their county and no further information. Okay, so now can we jump back 2 slides? Thank you. Yeah, just keeping it interesting. All right, so in addition to those 2 things, the authorization card and the county of residence letter, the welcome packet will include some forms, including a change of address form and some school enrollment forms, and a program participant handbook that will help program participants understand the program and how best to benefit from it. So speaking of the change of address form, program participants must update their contact information with us within 10 days of changing address or phone number or legal name. If they don't update contact information with us, they'll be removed from the program. And this is because we need to be able to get important documents that are coming to us to them. So in order to effectively act as their legal service of process, for example, we need to be able to quickly turn around, get things to them, make sure they're receiving them, they're not missing important things like hearings and custody cases, etc. So if mail starts bouncing back to us as return to sender, we'll reach out with whatever contact information we have, we'll call, we'll email. But if we're getting their mail back and their phone number is disconnected, we have to remove them from the program, unfortunately. If someone is removed from the program, they are not eligible to reapply for 6 months. And then a really important thing for victims who are interested in the program to understand is that it's their responsibility to contact government agencies and courts to have their records changed. There's not a lot that happens automatically with this program. There really is a lot of responsibility on the participants themselves. So we'll provide whatever support we can, but they need to go to the DMV to change their license. They need to go in person to the county clerk's office to register to vote if they choose to. They need to contact the court where they have any active cases going. And we're always available to educate state and local government employees who aren't very familiar with the program or have questions. But really, it just is impossible for us to know all of the interactions that people are having with different state agencies. Again, anything that is done through them through us will be very clearly stated, but otherwise the assumption should be that the onus is really on program participants. And then, like I mentioned earlier, they're enrolled for 4 years unless they choose to disenroll, in which case they need to send a notarized letter requesting to be disenrolled. Or also they really can just stop using the program. I mean, we have no control over it if someone just stops using their substitute address and starts using their true address. So that sort of is the other default way to get themselves out. And then, of course, if they don't keep their contact information, unfortunately, they'll be disenrolled. People can stay in as long as they would like to, though. So they can re-enroll every 4 years. They just have to go through that application process again. But from talking to folks in other states, I think some people who come into the program stay for the rest of their lives in the program. So that is not uncommon. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry, 2 more. Perfect. just keeping on your toes. Thanks, Maddie. So some things that the program does not do, because I think it's important to understand what the program does, but also really important to understand the scope of it and really its limitations and make sure it's a good fit for people. So a few of those things, again, this is not meant to operate as a complete safety plan. I can't emphasize that enough. If this program is necessary, there really needs to be more in place for that victim. And again, that's why we want them to be working with a certified program assistant. While we're hoping to get people enrolled as they're moving, unfortunately, we can't provide any assistance with housing or relocation. Safe at Home cannot provide counseling or legal services, but we're always available to answer questions about the program for program participants, for potential applicants, for certified program assistants. And also, again, if state or local government agencies have questions about the program or have never heard of it, we're happy to answer those questions and provide some education as well. Again, if you decide to become certified, which I hope everyone does, if you ever have questions, or if it's been a while since you've thought about the program and you could use a phone call to kind of be reminded of the main points, please feel free to reach out. That's why we are around. And finally, this is state law. So state and local government agencies are required to accept the substitute address. Federal government agencies are not required to, so that includes things like the US Postal Service, Social Security Administration, and others. And again, it never hurts to ask, though. I think many people, even who are not legally required to follow the Safe at Home statute, they will when they understand the importance of the program. And then also individuals and private business are not legally required to accept the substitute address. All right, next slide. Okay, so what is coming? So again, right now the anticipated launch is the end of January, which everyone keep your fingers crossed. We're really waiting on the online application to be up and running. I do want to say, while I am very hopeful for that end of January launch date, if it pushes a little into February, you know, things happen. But yeah, we'll all hope for that. And I will make very sure we're not shy about getting the word out once we are about to go live. I'll make sure that we're talking to SWAVO and kind of trying to find any channels we can to let everybody know. And then also we'll work with SWAVO to make sure we get the word out about the certified program assistant training. Doing the first one next week, but I think we'll do kind of the big kind of first official one in January. So I will spread the word about that. That'll be online, live, and then we'll make it available online on our website. And if you work with a bigger organization, please feel free to ask, and I'm happy to come do an in-person certified program assistant training if that is best for everyone at your organization. I'm happy to support it in any way I can and encourage people as much as possible to please consider doing this. Okay, last slide. Okay, so again, just to summarize quickly, so Safe at Home is for people, for victims or people threatened with domestic violence, stalking, and human trafficking and sexual assault who may be in danger if their perpetrator knew their location. They must live in Utah. They need to either be moving, have recently moved, or live at an address that's unknown to the perpetrator. And they must meet with a certified program assistant, so hopefully all of you very soon, to apply for the program. So we provide a substitute address that can be used on their driver's license, that can be used to receive mail that will forward for free, and that state and local government agencies are required to use in communications and records. And our certified program assistants will let people they're working with know about the program and go through the application with them, and we Safe at Home will take it from there. So the role is really just applying with a victim who could benefit from Safe at Home. So here's my email if anyone wants to email me questions, or I'm happy to answer any questions right now if anyone in the room has questions. Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering about home. Is this one like if they rent?
So home purchase honestly is a tricky spot. And these programs exist in about 40 other states, and there is not a state that has found a perfect way to deal with it. There's kind of some finessing and trying to work with title companies and work with the county that they're purchasing a house in. And we're happy to work with them on that and try to make it happen. But just frankly, it is a sticky spot that I like some solutions people have come up with are set up a legal trust to purchase the property in, which is expensive and, you know, a barrier, unfortunately, but there isn't really a smooth way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions I can answer right now? All right, well, yeah, please feel free to email me and I will try to blast everyone every way I can find once the program goes live. So plan to hear from me. Thanks everyone so much for your time.